Imagine waking up one morning to discover that the US government, the same government that once mocked Bitcoin as a scam, now needs Bitcoin to rise in order to survive. Not hopes, not wants, needs. It sounds impossible. For years, Bitcoin was treated as a toy for tech nerds and speculators. But thanks to a brand new $3.7 trillion stablecoin plan, the financial future of the United States may literally depend on Bitcoin exploding to levels that today seem like fantasy. And here's the craziest part. This isn't wild speculation, it's math. Cold, unforgiving math. The confession came straight from the source. Scott Bent, the head of the US Treasury, whose job is to sell America's debt to the world, was asked how we deal with the crushing debt crisis. His answer was simple. We must grow the economy faster than the debt grows. That's the most important number. That's it. That's the strategy. They can't cut the debt. They can't stop spending. They can't balance the budget. The only option left is to make the economy explode higher. Elon Musk figured it out too. When he quit the Trump administration, he admitted he was naive to think the deficit could be cut. His conclusion? Accelerating GDP growth is essential. Translation? No cuts, no austerity, no discipline, just growth, at any cost. But here's the problem. Growth only comes in two ways. You can print more money, which fuels inflation, or you can make massive productivity gains through technology and automation. Printing money is instant. Productivity takes years. And time is one thing the US doesn't have. Think of a family already maxed out on 5 credit cards. To pay the bills, they open a 6th, then a 7th. Soon they're paying interest with borrowed money. That's the US government today. The debt-to-GDP ratio is already racing toward 150%, and projections show it could hit 200%. At that point, the math simply breaks. The Bank of International Settlements has warned, if governments don't act now, inflation will spiral out of control, so the US has made its choice. Default is impossible, which means the only way out is to inflate the debt away. That's where Trump's new Genius Act comes in. On the surface, it looks like boring stablecoin regulation, but under the hood, it's a financial earthquake. Right now, banks hold $3.5 trillion in sterilized reserves, basically money locked away, earning interest, but kept out of the economy to prevent runaway inflation. The Genius Act changes that. For the first time, those frozen reserves can be transformed into stablecoins, digital dollars that can move freely. That's $3.5 trillion of hidden cash suddenly unlocked. Now imagine what happens if that money floods into the economy. At first, it feels great. Businesses boom, stocks jump, people spend. But quickly, the water level rises too high, groceries shoot up, rent becomes unbearable, gas prices double. That dream home you've been saving for? Suddenly, it's $3 million. Retirement accounts erode because the cost of living outpaces your savings. We saw a small preview of this in 2020. Just a few $100 billion in stimulus checks and PPP loans sent housing prices up by 40% in some places. Now multiply that by 10. The government wants the growth, but it can't survive the political chaos of runaway inflation, which means it needs a release valve. This is where Bitcoin enters the plan. Unlike houses, groceries, or gasoline, Bitcoin doesn't compete for consumer goods. It's not a loaf of bread or a gallon of gas. It's digital. It simply absorbs liquidity. That makes it the perfect escape valve. Here's why. Gold rises about 1.4 times when liquidity expands. Stocks do something similar, but Bitcoin reacts nearly 9 times more strongly. That means every dollar of excess liquidity has the biggest effect on Bitcoin prices. So if Bitcoin rises from today's levels to $500,000 or even $1 million, it can soak up trillions of dollars that otherwise would have gone into housing, cars, and food. Instead of a wave of inflation drowning families, the excess money disappears into Bitcoin. It's a digital sponge. And the insiders already know this. Trump's own media company just bought $2 billion of Bitcoin. His Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, runs Cantor Fitzgerald, one of the largest firms tied to stablecoins like Tether. His son is spearheading billion-dollar Bitcoin investments. These aren't accidents. These are deliberate moves. Wall Street and Washington aren't mocking Bitcoin anymore. They're buying it, quietly, in size. Because they understand Bitcoin isn't just a hedge anymore. It's becoming part of the government's survival strategy. Stablecoins are the pipeline that makes it possible. They unlock the frozen reserves. They transform sterile money into circulating digital dollars. And as they grow, they create more demand for US Treasuries, which in turn feeds more liquidity into the system. And the more liquidity there is, the more Bitcoin rises. Since the Genius Act passed, stablecoin assets have already surged over 30%. The pipeline is opening. But here's the trap. For this to work long-term, productivity has to explode. Elon Musk has said humanoid robots might boost GDP in 4 to 5 years. But the US can't wait 4 to 5 years. It needs growth now. That means the money printer has to run now, which means inflation has to rise now, which means Bitcoin must absorb it now. Without Bitcoin as a sponge, inflation spills into the real world. Families face $10 gas, $20 hamburgers, starter homes priced like luxury estates, and an entire generation priced out of the American dream. That's the nightmare scenario. That's what they're trying to prevent. We've seen versions of this before. After World War II, debt was unsustainable. The government used financial repression, capping yields, running hot inflation, and forcing investors into other assets. Today, the strategy is similar. But the asset is digital. It's Bitcoin. Why not gold? Why not stocks? Because gold is tied to industrial use and jewelry. Stocks represent real companies that make real goods. Both feed back into consumer prices. Bitcoin doesn't. It's pure financial gravity, a black hole for excess money. So here's the bigger picture. The US is drowning in debt. The only way out is inflation plus growth. To keep inflation from wrecking daily life, they need an escape valve. Bitcoin is the best candidate. And the insiders, from Wall Street titans to the president himself, are already positioned. When the government's survival depends on an asset rising, you can bet they will do everything in their power to make sure it does. That's why this $3.7 trillion plan matters. Not because it regulates stablecoins, but because it quietly sets the stage for Bitcoin to become the safety valve of the entire financial system. And that means the price targets that once seemed like fantasy may now be government policy. Bitcoin is no longer just a rebel currency, no longer just an experiment, no longer just a hedge. It is becoming a policy tool, the relief valve for America's debt crisis. And whether you own it or not, whether you believe in it or not, whether you even like it or not, the government now has a reason to push Bitcoin higher, and that changes everything.